Welcome to the Enterprise GTM podcast, hosted by Tim Zonka and Vidya Raman. Each episode takes a deep dive into how to successfully maneuver the unique dynamics of enterprise go-to-market while candidly discussing successful approaches, pitfalls, and failures alike. Our guests are seasoned company founders, GTM execs, technology buyers, and end users. Please note that the views expressed by individuals in these podcasts are not to be treated as investment advice. They are also not representing the views of their employers, current or previous.
Well, welcome to the Enterprise GTM podcast. We're thrilled to have Chet Kapoor with us today. So Chet is a three-time founder. He's been in tech long enough to ride through every significant technology wave of the past few decades, from web to cloud to AI. And it makes him uniquely qualified to talk to founders about how to think about identifying the right waves to ride on, and almost equally important, timing it well. So in this podcast, we hope to get to broad as well as specific advice for founders. Chet, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Tim, Vidya, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm really looking forward to this.
So let's start, maybe take us back in time. I'd love to have you go through a few of your experiences leading companies like GlueCode, became IBM, Apogee, went to Google, and now DataStax. And in particular, maybe tease out any of the unique market opportunities that you saw as you joined those companies.
Let me start from the very beginning, because there's a relevancy to your question. My journey started very early on in my career in a place called Calcutta, India, where I read a book called The Little Kingdom by Mike Moritz. I'm sure your listeners know Mike Moritz. He used to be a Times reporter, and he led Sequoia, right? So very well known. And Little Kingdom was about Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. And I basically said, I'm going to go and work for this guy called Steve Jobs. Kate came to the States and started working for Next. And my first job out of college was working for Next. Now, why is that relevant? The reason that's relevant is, number one, I think it's a good thing to actually have goals and actually achieve them. That's a really good thing. It's fulfilling. But the most important point is that your first job out of college will shape you more than any other job usually. It's the same concept for those of us who are parents. You see that 80% of a kid's personality gets formed in the first 4 years of their lives. The same thing happens in your professional life. And I've been lucky enough to be very successful. And a lot of people say, what happened and why? Obviously, it starts with my parents, my upbringing, all that stuff, my journeys, my childhood issues. But also, it comes down to what were my first 4 years like. And I actually had a chance to work 20 yards away from Steve Jobs every day. And I was the guy that got coffee for the person that made coffee, but it was not relevant because I was hanging out with really smart people. And so that, I think, is really relevant to folks. Like, a lot of people get stuck on titles. They worry about brands of companies. My general advice to people is find a set of people you want to work with, convince them that they need you, and then pay them so you can work for them. Like, pay them. Like, that's how important the first 4 years are of your career. So now to your question, Tim, the thing that I learned that I've applied across everything is just simply two things, right? And then you add on things as you go along, but it is always about the people. You have to make sure that you're hanging out with really, really smart people. You like really smart people and who are mission oriented, right? Not people who are smart and pontificate, right? Because I'm about building products, right? So you need to make sure that across everything I've done, whenever I feel like I have not done as well as I thought I would do, right? You can make excuses about the market and this and that. It always comes down to, I should have made the right decision on people. And if I made the wrong decision, I didn't move fast enough. So that's number one. The second thing is having complete clarity of thought, whether it is a consumer product, whether it's an enterprise product, having clarity on what you're trying to build. And whatever you're trying to build will change, right? This product is very different than the way Steve and others actually imagined it in 2005 or 2004 when they started working on it, right? But having the clarity on who you're doing this for, who is it going to affect, how is it going to change their lives is really, really important, right? If you can just do that, right? Know what hard problem you're solving, and then actually make sure that you're doing it with smart people, that combination rocks.
One of the things I was curious to get your take on is what I see is like the tension between a longer term vision and then just the kind of more nearer term churn that happens in any market.
I'm a runner, and so you don't think about mile 13. Right. And so when you're on mile 1, you focus on the first mile, and then you focus on the second mile. You know you have to run 13 or you have to run 26 if you're running a full marathon, but you don't focus on what you're going to be doing when you run the 25th mile. You put one foot in front of the other and run the current mile that you're in. And I think a lot of people start forgetting the one thing that a lot of people forget when they do startups is then the word is momentum. Mm-hmm. Right? Never underestimate the word momentum, right? Because little small successes, I can go back to every journey I've had and I can tell you all the places where I could have done better, right? Where how the recovery could have been better, because you are going to fail. You do enough of these things, enough decisions, they're going to be wrong ones. Statistically, it's impossible to make all the right decisions. It's a question of how quickly you recover. And almost all of them are generally around people. It's not about how you reacted to markets. But every good decision, there are a lot of micro things that happen that give you this confidence, right? And those are, by the way, not long-term. Those are little things that happen every day that add on, that just give you the belief that you can actually make a dent in the universe.
Yeah, it's that mile after mile.
Very much so.
It's amazing. You brought up momentum. I'm a huge believer in momentum also. And it's a good segue to generative AI, which is obviously exploded in the last year. Enterprises are scrambling to do something with generative AI, and data stacks is rightfully playing a pivotal role here. Having been at both startups and big companies, I can imagine that especially in later stage startups, it would have been quite possible to sit around the table and pontificate around, we are this, manage Cassandra. And there's all this stuff that's happening around generative AI. There are like a dozen companies that are doing vector databases. What should we be doing? Do we believe in it? Do we not believe in it? Clearly, that's not what DataStax did. I just right before this podcast, when you go into datastacks.com, and our audience can do that too, you've clearly embraced it, but also you put a stake in the ground, and congrats on the acquisition of Landflow. So the question that I have here is that, to your point, you're harnessing the momentum of generative AI. Could you tell us a little bit about what you have been hearing from your enterprise customers, Chet, and what is it that they want to do with generative AI, and how are you and DataStax trying to enable them?
I'll start with an entrepreneur's point of view, and then I'll give you the customer's point of view, because I think they both are relevant. One is outside in, the other one's inside out. So I'll start with the more important one is how they think about this, which is your question. The DataStax, I'm firmly of the belief, and I think a lot of your listeners and viewers will agree with this, one of the best ways to create a company, a large company that grows very fast, is either create a parade or join a parade, right? And so there's something that is folklore in the Valley, right? If you see a parade, grab a baton, right? Because you want to join it, right? And so it was very clear to DataStax that when the Gen AI thing happened, we wanted to join the parade, and we wanted to join the parade and run as quickly as possible to the front of the parade, right? In fact, if I can, my discussion with the team was, in March of last year we started talking about ChatGPT in November at the all hands. My date in March was either we're going to do this or we're going to do something else, right? That's how strongly we felt about it. And so there's, when you see that parade, you cannot say, I'm going to be a spectator. You have to jump in like head first. No walking into the water head first and go all the way in, because firmly that is exactly how you go off and create. And Tim, in your introduction of me, you said I've been through the different waves, right, of client server, web, mobile, cloud. That's how you do it, right? You jump in and you say, I'm going to be part of that parade, and just take the entire wave carries you, but you have to do your part. So what's going on the enterprise side? I think I'm going to give you two frameworks to think about this, right? One is all the waves that we've ever been through always have two kinds of use cases. There's always incremental use cases, and then there's transformative use cases. Incremental use cases are, let me give you one, think Angry Birds on your phone, right? That's an incremental use case, right? A website, incremental use case. That's great. By the way, nothing, but that's how it starts, right? But think about transformative use cases, right? Your banking app on your mobile thing. You don't have to go anywhere anymore. You don't have to go and deposit a check anymore. Branches are closing down, right? That's transformative to you, the consumer, as well as the bank, right? But having a website was not transformative, but it was informative, right? And so it was incremental. So I think the same thing is going to happen to generative AI. What are going to be the use cases for incremental ones? Chatbots, right? Customer service chatbots, co-pilots, already happening, right? People can now, with a high degree of confidence, say if you're doing a new app, it's about 30 to 40% productivity increase for developers. For existing apps, a little harder. GitHub, we're working very closely with GitHub. You have to train your co-pilot on your existing code base so it can get really smart and go from there. But those things will continue to happen. The real fun starts with transformative use cases. And that's when you really see the effect of the wave, right? I mean, Netflix would not have been here if it wasn't for cloud.
Absolutely.
Right? Just to be clear, would not have happened without the cloud. I mean, everything else, you can say, no, it's not necessary. They could have done it. Yes, they could have done those things working off data centers, but it would have been an absolute pain in the ass for them to scale it the way they did. Right? And so, and for the record, nor would AWS be here without Netflix. Right? So it kind of works both ways. But and that's the thing about a wave. So the transformative use cases is what I'm looking forward to. And I think it's something that we're going to publish a white paper on and talk about it later on this month to actually talk about how people should approach the transformative use cases. Because I think people are skirting on the sidelines as they should. The second framework is who are the people using it and who are the people buying it on generative AI. So who are the users, the developers? I am so thrilled that the developers are back on top. And by the way, data scientists are great. So DevOps is great. Everybody is great. But there's still smaller number of skills in those areas. The good thing about developers are there are 30 million of them, right? And now they are going to build generative AI apps. So I really like that. But what are the developers doing? They're experimenting. Every piece of technology that comes up, they just want to go and play with it, which is awesome because that's what it should be. Right? They need to do the incremental use cases. And then when the transformative use cases come, they like to happen. The buyers, interestingly enough, which is CIOs, have two kinds of pressures. A, they have to focus on the wild, wild west to go off and make, like, oh my God, if there's anything worth doing, it's happening in open source. Literally. If there's anything worth doing, it is. If you have thought of something that is not happening in open source, there's at least a 70% chance you're wrong. Like that's a
bold statement.
We're actually reversing it and saying, if you come up with some really cool idea that's not happening in open source, you may not know what you're talking about, right? I mean, just going to the extreme, but they see that wild, wild west, and then they're getting pressure from the board saying, hey, cut costs by 30%. We hear Gen AI makes you 30% more productive about developers. And where is the use case? When can we go off and show off and talk about this? So it's a very good vortex. Developers are excited. CIOs are excited, but they have to be careful because they get sued, because banks can give bad advice. So we love all this, and we are very comfortable with all the ambiguity around it because we know how to sort through it. And my suggestion to your viewers is to keep it simple. Right? Focus on creating a product that developers love, that change the trajectory of the enterprises that they work for. Simple. That's how we build product. We kind of sort it out. We just keep focusing and saying, here's the product that actually will help you build Gen AI apps really fast, that scale, and they're relevant. And then as that happens, enterprises will buy more. I hope that answers your question.
Totally does. And we're definitely looking forward to that white paper, Chet, on transformative applications. I certainly will be keeping an eye for it.
We just started working on it last week on the outline. And so give it a couple of weeks and we'll have it out about the 21st of May.
Okay. I guess you're making a commitment for your colleagues at DataStax already. That's awesome.
Chet, you had mentioned, just as you even in one of your last statements there, talking about kind of Gen AI in the enterprise. I'd love your take on especially guidance to founders where early stage companies and just the questions that they have to ask themselves to determine how they approach, do they approach and how do they approach enterprise sales? because especially with a lot of, if it's VC funding or startups that see the allure, especially in a developer world, of a PLG, get this out there and have it go viral. And then there's the, well, or should we do, is this an enterprise sales motion? And it's a tough gauntlet to navigate. So for founders that are thinking, we have an enterprise go to market here, or we need to, how do they process that set of questions?
This could be a podcast by itself, by the way, just this particular topic. So I'll try to keep it short.
Absolutely.
Number one, I would tell the founder, know who you are, because there's a high likelihood the company will be formed around the way you think, not what you want to become, but who you really are, right? If you're a developer, it's best to go off and start with a PLG motion. If you're a marketing or a sales executive that has started a company, then go off and start with an enterprise motion. Right. So stay true to who you are rather than going off and trying to be somebody you're not. So that would be my first thing. I think at steady state, no matter where you start, I think you need two things in the Gen AI world. Provided you're an infrastructure player and not going off and doing apps, you need to make sure you have a motion where users can use it and can actually give you feedback, and developers in this case can use it and go make it happen. Developers are generally cheap. And so they don't actually pay you a lot of money, but they actually use your product and make it better every day, right? So you need to make sure you have a way to actually interact with them on a regular basis. That's one. And then the second thing is, how do you monetize it? I have generally kept the monetization separate from the user, because I don't think monetizing developers my experience has not been to not go off and do that. And I've done this enough times to see it not work really well, unless you have 1 billion developers, right? Which we don't. We only have 30 million of them, right? And so once you have the PLG motion, so the second thing I would say is, if you can get the PLG motion done first, it's the right thing to do. Because when you have the land and expand, that's where you actually figure out a way to get the enterprise sales motion going. When you have the expansion happening organically, because of your product and because you have dev advocates and onboarding engineers working with them, that's when you go off and do it. My third recommendation would be that try to make sure that the PLG motion and the enterprise motion are somewhat separate, because they cater to two separate things.
Yeah.
Right? Because the enterprise sales individual does not, no matter what they say, they don't understand how a developer thinks. And quite frankly, they shouldn't, right? Because they're selling to the CIO. And the same thing goes for the PLG person, does not quite understand how you close a $4 million deal on a golf course, right?
Yeah,
so
in the marketing motion even, it's different.
But it's one funnel. One funnel. And so my take, if the founders are like, oh my God, what the hell to do with this? My take is, start small. Land and expand. Just get as much usage of your product as you possibly can. When you do that, you will get plenty of opportunity to close enterprise deals. Don't hire an enterprise sales force or enterprise sales team too early. And unfortunately, Tim and Vidya, I've seen as I talk to founders, they get pressure from VCs. Oh, you've got good adoption. Go off and hire salespeople. No, you have good adoption. Great. Now let's see how they're expanding. Dedicate some engineers to the expansion. Let's see what organically happens before you say, let's punch in an enterprise salesperson to go off and close a deal.
That's great guidance. What about, kind of related to a typical enterprise motion is a partner motion.
Yeah.
And at least in my experience, especially with even big size startups, partner motions are tricky to figure out how to prioritize, because, a big partner can consume a whole company, like their resources. And then there's the appetite to do something with partner A, and then partner B, and then partner C. So what kind of guidance do you have for especially founders as they're starting to court partners or be pulled into partner relationships?
I think I may be the worst person in the world to ask this question, because I have such strong, polarizing, biased points of view. I think entrepreneurs make their companies successful by working with users and buyers. I think it's as simple as that. You build a great product, you get people to use it and love it, fall in love with it. And then because they love it, they do something super interesting. And then people say, I want to buy it. It's really that simple. It's not harder than that. I think partners, I would say 100% of the companies that I have worked with, and it's a very small subset. I spend most of my time running data stacks and making sure my kids don't call me uncle. So I'm not doing the VC thing and looking at a lot of companies. But I think 100% of folks I interact with get too eager on the partner side because they think about leverage and scale and things like that. And my take is there are only two kinds of partnerships in my mind. One is system integrators. I think those wait as late as you possibly can. Generally, the enterprises tell them what to do. But the second one is ecosystem partnerships. You should go after those quickly. But just to be clear, do that in the community.
Yeah.
You don't need 16 partner people running around. Just do the integration in the community. At the end of the day, why are you doing ecosystem integrations? One and only one reason, so your product gets used more. Because you're making it easier for the developer. Because the developer doesn't just use one tool or one database or one thing. They actually use something together. So make it really easy for them in the community. And as your product gets more usage, you'll have a chance to sell more. So my take would be, if you think I'm asking them to be cautious about hiring enterprise salespeople, I would say be extra cautious to get on a partner strategy. You need to make sure that you are so comfortable with repeatability. Like you are really comfortable with, like really to a point where you can say, I can hire a sales team. I can keep hiring sales team and create leverage. Like I can hire 100 or 200 of them. That's when you go on and actually have partners. Otherwise, I think it's wasted calories.
I love that clarity. Yeah. Especially that just tenacious
But I have
focus.
a very biased point of view, Tim, just to be clear, very biased point of view.
That's why we're asking you.
Yeah. Makes, unfortunately, yes, that mistake keeps happening a lot. And I'm also a firm believer in that without that customer proximity, how would you even know, what's the right thing to build and how to actually talk about it? There's so much valuable feedback that is lost with all this arm's length dealings. So completely makes sense. Chet, want to talk about competition here. Now, I'm sure you've seen this in every company that you've been at, which is sooner or later, any problem that's worth solving will have multiple different players going at it. Vector databases is a great example of that. And sometimes competitors might end up getting better funded or might start executing in ways that they might seem formidable. And the question that I have is more leadership oriented, which is, when you're leading a company that is going through that, very similar to what I'm sure you're facing now, how do you work through such a situation and how do you really corral your team around why you're doing what you're doing and feeling excited about it and, making them feel like, yes, we will win? How do you go about that?
I'll tell you, a lot of my answers will go back to the very, very, very crisp foundation that I follow. And it'll sound overly simplistic. Just so that you think I'm sophisticated, I'll make it more complex.
You don't have to. You shouldn't. You shouldn't. Simple is always good.
So let's start with, I am always focused. I focus everybody around me on building a product that developers love. I really do. I just focus everything on are the people who are using the product really love using it? Are they advocates for it? That's what matters. That's number one. And then the second thing is, are they creating enough value in what they are doing with our product that we can monetize it? Right? Those are the only, so users and buyers, I always go back to that. And everything that we do at DataStax, or I did at Apogee, or I've done in any other company, even when I was not the CEO, was all about, do we have feedback on users? Do we have feedback on, and by the way, you can be very data-driven on all of that. So that's what I would say. Now, let's talk about competition. I used to be very hardcore about competition, where I would say no looking at competitive products, no discussing competition in front of enterprise customers. Like literally, I've had many conversations with CIOs where I've said, I don't understand the question. Let me point you to a tool called Google. You can do your research yourself. Right? I'm of that opinion and they look at me weird, and I say it respectfully. If I have X hours in a day, or have X minutes in an hour, you want me to focus on solving your problem, not how my competitor does it, right? So the reason I come to that is not how somebody else builds a chair. If I'm a carpenter, it's how I build a chair, and the chair that works the best for you. That's how pure my thought process used to be. Now I've modified that a little bit. We do some competitive analysis.
I saw Pinecone mentioned on your website.
Yeah, so we've done that. So we actually do a little bit. So, and we try not to do it. But the thing is, there's a school of thought, right? And there are shades of gray. There's a school of thought which is you do the Larry Ellison way. You just go after a competitor and kill it, and you can't argue with that. I mean, he's like a god, right? Super successful, but that's who he is. Right. And it's his manifestation of the company he built. I started on this side, which is, the Steve Jobs school of thought, which is I'm just going to try to build breakthrough products. And that's what matters to me. I think there's shades of gray, and I've rotated a little bit and come to the middle and says, I'm not going to obsess about the competition, but I am going to make sure that our customers have an informed point of view through third parties and things like that. Right. For example, some of our lead developers will spend time on knowing how the products work. We do benchmarking because in databases, benchmarking at scale is really important. But the one thing that we do is whenever we talk about this, we actually give them the source code for it. So we actually, so if you're talking about how we did against Pinecone, we actually take the code that we did and the test we did and say it's yours.
That is
right?
cool.
So do what
that
you
is
want
really
with
cool.
it. If it gets so because the starting place is this is not what we do.
Yeah.
So whenever we feel a little uncomfortable, we just say just give it to them because we want purity of thought in making that happen. So to wrap it all up, focus on what style you are and who you are as a person and manifest that and decide whether you want to twist and turn a little bit or modify your approach a little bit. I will not be able to become the person that somebody else is that says, I'm just going to there's folklore, right? Put a target on your competitor's back and everybody runs and kills them and this and that. That's not who I am, right? So my take is I just want to make sure that we build the best product that people love.
Awesome. That's a fantastic approach. Turning to the last section here, Chet. So we have a few rapid fire true and false kind of questions. You can just say true or false to any question. And it's, optional if you want to also provide any 1 or 2 sentence brief clarification about why you take a certain position. Make sense?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So the first one is, I feel like, having had these last few minutes chatting with you, I kind of have a feeling how you're going to answer many of these. But so the first one here is, much of the data infrastructure stack as we know it will change 5 years from now.
Yes, absolutely. It happens every time, and it takes far longer than most people think it does. Is it okay if I give a short
Absolutely,
story?
please,
okay, great.
Please.
So one of my favorite venture capitalists is a gentleman, and I don't have a lot of them, but a few is Kevin Compton. He used to be at Kleiner Perkins, and I remember we were there when EAI, Enterprise Application Integration, was formed. I mean, literally, I was in Orlando with the Gartner analyst when they created that, and I came back on. I was like, "Yeah, this is going to be another couple of years," and Kevin's like, "Chet, this will be a bloody decade." That was 98. We're still doing enterprise application integration 25 years later. So a lot of people don't realize how long these waves go for and categories go for. The stack thing absolutely will be very different. Think about what you think about orchestration today versus what you thought about it a decade ago, right? Just simply that. And it changes everything. So sorry about I know it's rapid fire.
No. This is great.
Because here's the thing, your founders will all oh my God, I'm in the middle of it. It's going to happen. So you have to have this, I'm going to run my current mile well, but I must know that I'm going to run 26 of them. You cannot sprint your marathon, but you do have to pace the marathon you're running.
Yes, absolutely. So I just want to make sure that I'm able to processing it correctly. I think what you're saying is that there's absolutely going to be a new data infrastructure stack. However, how long that is going to take to manifest and become mainstream, that could be much longer than the next few. Okay.
For sure.
Gotcha.
For sure.
Okay.
I think, by the way, I do believe, just to be clear, I do believe it'll be faster than any other wave before. And for one fundamental reason, not because of Gen AI and all that stuff. It's primarily because it builds on 3 waves before this. Right? This is one of the first ones that actually builds on web, on cloud, on mobile. It's like, wow. I mean, ChatGPT wouldn't have taken off if those things were not there together.
Totally.
And so that's what this is.
Yes. The next one is multimodal AI will become mainstream in most enterprises in the coming 5 years.
For sure. Absolute no-brainer. Absolute no-brainer.
Okay.
And by the way, I think multimodal will actually become mainstream with consumers a lot quicker. A lot quicker. I am interacting with LLMs today, I feel like I'm already feeling the need to interact in many different ways other than just have. So the people who are using it and people who understand a little bit of how this stuff works, they're like yearning for it.
Because it just turns out humans are multimodal, right? So it just is very natural for that to happen. Cool. So next one is LLM agent-based applications will reinvent most of the enterprise software landscape as we know it.
I think I'll go further. The answer is yes. I think it'll not only do the enterprise landscape, I think it'll change the P&L of every company we know. The P&L of every company we know, because the transformative use cases are not incremental on let me take my NPS score higher or let me make a developer. It will literally become people with agents, right? So it is people with AI. It's not about just people versus AI. It is people with AI versus people without AI. And I think that will transform all enterprises. And I think it'll happen a lot quicker than most people think. Absolutely believe it's going to happen. Like I would love to have 2 agents that actually increase my productivity by 20%. Who just know me. I absolutely believe it'll happen. It'll happen in less than 5 years.
That way
it will be faster than the others.
That way you can have a Chet doing podcasts at the same time as a Chet that is doing a board meeting.
No. I want to do the podcast one, but I don't want to sit here and look at every Slack channel and every email. And I want to make sure it synthesizes information on the way I think. Right? And so I think it'll happen in a big way.
Awesome. Okay, so next one is about startups. So on average, it is going to take a lot more to get to 1 million in ARR for startups than before. And I'm talking about startups that are just starting out.
Possibly is if you want a yes or no answer, my answer would be yes, not to be safe. But so let me just explain. I think what is going to happen is because this wave is going to move quicker, I think the winners and losers will start getting formed very quickly. And the people who are winning will be able to go past $1 million in months. Forget the year. And the people who are losing will, by the way, will be fire sales. And the people in the middle will have to make a choice whether they should pivot very quickly or not. Because this is going to move very quickly, that's what I absolutely believe that'll happen. So possibly is my answer.
It's a great way to think about it. I hadn't thought about it in that dimension.
I mean, I'll give you a simple example. Look at the orchestration space, right?
Yes.
You can talk about all the different things, but LangChain is done. It's the winner. I think that's going to happen across all the areas. It's going to happen for LLM ops. It's going to happen for ingest. It's going to happen for almost all the other spaces.
All right. So the next one is related. In the new era of AI, the big players, be it AWS, GCP, Azure, NVIDIA, for that matter, will stand to gain the most compared to a new upstart.
Absolutely disagree. Completely disagree. When we did this go in March and figure this out kind of thing, that was one of our big things. If this is going to go to all these folks, we're like, why are we in this business, right? Let's just hold on to what we were. Absolutely not. There's no way. The dynamics have not changed. There's no way those companies can move as fast as other companies outside who are single-mindedly focused on one thing. That dynamic has not changed. It will continue to be there. And I'm very glad you mentioned NVIDIA, because a lot of people don't realize that NVIDIA actually has a $1 billion software business.
Yes.
Right. And we did a great partnership with them. And our partnership is getting deeper and deeper. In fact, so much so that we're actually leading them. Our biggest problem in the partnership has been, how do we get them to think about contracts in a software way? And so it's been really, really interesting. But I absolutely believe there's plenty of opportunities for entrepreneurs to kick ass and change the world.
That's a very hopeful message. And thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, I love it.
No, absolutely. The disruption has not started yet. Just to be clear.
Transformative applications, as you've been saying.
Yet.
Yes.
Let's just wait.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so the last, I feel like you've already touched upon this, but the last one is demand for data scientists and data engineers. Is it going to go up in the next 5 years?
No.
For both data scientists and data engineers. Okay.
See, let me answer both. Data scientists, no, because I think LLMs will start doing a lot of what data scientists do. And I think, quite frankly, we've struggled The number of data scientists has not exponentially increased over the last 5 years. It's one of the reasons why I think predictive AI was somewhat successful, but will be nowhere. Gen AI will be so much more successful because the talent pool is so big with developers going off and making it happen. So I think the data scientist pool will remain the same. I actually think the smart data scientists are trying to figure out a way to be more relevant to the Gen AI world instead of resisting it. The ones that resist it are the ones that will actually be hurt over a period of time. Data engineer is a little harder for me just because different people describe data engineers to be different things. That's my concern. If they are engineers that help you build apps, the answer is absolutely they'll explode. Right? But if these are people who are just focusing on moving data from Pulsar and Kafka and moving them from A to B, and that's what they do, no, those things will go down. Right? So that's why I hesitated. So if you keep it to people who are just moving data around, then I think they both will go down. But if data engineers are just good engineers and they were focused on just a data problem, then they'll go up because there is no AI without data. None, zero, right? There's no AI without data.
Absolutely. And this is where hopefully there is AI that is going to even make it easier for all of this data to come together and make these transformative applications happen. On that note, Chet, this was a mind-blowing conversation. Yeah, really love being able to cover the gamut from, your early days in Calcutta to your entrepreneurial experiences all the way to Gen AI. Thank you so much for your time. Tim and I really enjoyed this conversation.
This was a blast. You guys are awesome hosts. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Enterprise GTM podcast. Subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on your favorite podcast platform so we can continue to help enterprise founders thrive.